Ah, so firstly, to talk about Bitcoin, as we know, and as we have been talking, it's been stuck in that range between 36,000 and 38,000 for quite some time. It started this at the beginning of November, November 2nd, and it tested on from the up, and then pulled back. Then at a later period, 1 week later, it broke over. But uh, it's a similar thing has been going on. If we look at this, a similar thing has been going on this range as well. But it hasn't really panned out similarly. And the more time Bitcoin spends in this area, the more bearish pressure it starts to accumulate. So, like I said before, I would be very careful trading in this range as well, because of the obvious volatility it brings, and the range bound price could also take us out of some trades. So, it's helpful if we can follow the system, which would somewhat protect us at the moment. But beyond the 38,000 and below the 36,000, there might be trading which the below 36,000 seems more likely right now with the price action we have been having, because mm, 30 days of not 30, let's say 20 days of cross price action doesn't really bode well for a bullish asset. So we did have a similar situation in October as well, where the price broke out eventually of that 35,000 mark. But we are talking about similar things in 35,000 mark, so that was a crucial level, and if that was broken, we had a 10% rally in our hand. So that's the similar scenario we have at our hand. If 38,000 is breached, we could target these long-term areas of 40,000, 42,000 very easily. So this is daily, and this would become 42,000, this 42,000, 42,500 area. So this area would become active target zone before we obviously with Bitcoin will have the 40,000 round number test as well, which also has been confirmed quite some time in 2022 and 2021 as well. So this brings us the extra like contradictions in the trading at the moment, as we can see. If we even go to the our longer setup for the Fisher, it will show us that it has gone up quite a bit, but we don't have we necessarily have the crossover yet. So if we were to have a downside move, we needed to have a crossover of some kind here. So that hasn't happened yet, and even though it's not it's not really over yet, as the price, if we see on the daily scale, has been quite flaky, if we can say that, as these days, some of these days price has been moving more than $2,000 and not necessarily making any headways at all. So that's something we should keep an eye out for. So either of these two things can happen. If this breaks above, we will have the 40,000 test and 42,000 test on the following days, months, weeks. But if we break down of the 36, we could get hanged around for that 33,000, 34,000, 35,000 areas, and price could continue to be sluggish. And if that 34,000 mark is breached, then we can look much further down near the 30,000 mark. But yeah, that doesn't seem likely at the moment, with dollar especially being very weak. And there's no such like big events from the dollar's point of view as well. And it would be critical to see sorry it would be critical to see how dollar reacts in an environment like that, where the Fed is not necessarily going to push it further. But s- on our scales at the moment, which we follow, uh, Bitcoin has been bearish for a couple of weeks, and could continue that trend a little bit down, further down, uh, as also talked about yesterday and last week. So that's the scenario at hand for Bitcoin. And similarly, for if we move to the Ethereum, uh, we see a very similar picture, where the 22,000 mark is playing the 38,000 mark, and the 2200 mark, 2120 mark is playing the same role as the 38,000 mark for does Bitcoin, and 1950 making the 36,000 mark role. So it's also been stuck for 2 weeks now. But it's a little less cross. There has still been like momentum, actually, not something that is zigzagging, uh, not something that is too wide action like Bitcoin. It's a little bit better, but it will eventually follow the same stuff as Bitcoin. So this is also the thing as well. It has a it did this last month as well, and then broke above that crucial 2,000 mark. Similarly to Bitcoin, which it did for the 35,000 mark. But for the moment, it seems like it has tested that high level for quite some time, quite a few times, but it has not been able to break above, which uh, which uh, which makes things even more complicated, and harder to anticipate. Uh, Now, let's say if we go to the daily, it's going to be similar, obviously, for to the Bitcoin, but there might be more like intense sort of a reaction from Ethereum if anything of the either have was to happen. So if it was like breaking above, the reaction obviously could be much more intense, with 24,000 is in focus. Sorry, 2400 in focus, which is much more than 10% uh, movement. But with Bitcoin, we are not expecting a 10% movement yet. 10% movement would be around 42,000, which should require a test of that 40,000 mark, um, firstly. But the weekly, as we can see, Fisher is still quite bullish, and this whole movement could just be transitory. But the couple of tests and formation of maybe a double top could is a cause for real concern. And if the price breaks down, creates a new low in the month, it's going to be very tricky to fend off. And especially since these assets are trading much higher than their mean value over the last 1 year or so. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Uh, anyway, if there are other questions, we can also look at some other data as well on these assets, which I think will paint a similar picture. Volume is going to be uh, up and down, and much lower than the trendy periods. Uh, the interest is going to be slightly dampened, and other activities as well slightly lower on average than where it normally is. So mm I think that's about it for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will try to answer them.